Hi, 8th grade. Today we are reading Steady Progress, Chapter 18 of my 13th Winter. This is on page 181. I needed a summer job after freshman year, but the painful memories of work the previous summer made me leery. My mom found out through a friend that there was an opening at a local day camp. They were looking for an art instructor to co-teach arts and crafts for campers aged 6 to 14, and also to act as a general camp counselor. I applied, got the job, and felt completely apathetic about it. Here was just one more opportunity to feel mediocre and fail, but I was used to that by now. My expectations were pretty meager when I arrived for council orientation in mid-June. I met Erin that first day. She was taller and 3 years older than me, with short, thick brown hair. I was surprised when I spoke to her. She really appeared to be listening to me. I immediately felt a sense of sincerity and thoughtfulness, as well as a depth of feeling that I could relate to. She also shared a similar sense of humor. I had come to feel weird and out of place with my friends at school and had begun to wonder if there was really something else wrong with me. At camp with Erin, I felt I had found someone I could really relate to. Something else happened that summer to help me find myself again. I had been invited to participate in an educational conference at Stanford University in August. Danny Siegel, a poet, author, and lecturer, invited me to fly out to Palo Alto to be part of his presentation. Danny is the founder and chairman of the Ziv Teveka Fund, an organization that gives financial support to individuals who dedicate their lives to making a difference for others. Sometime during my 11th grade year, I had received a phone call from Danny. He introduced himself and talked about how much he enjoyed my book and its message, and how he wanted to include me and it in the list of people he profiled who were making a difference. I was honored. Over the next couple months, via phone calls and letters, my parents and I got to know Danny. Later that spring, he invited us to a presentation he was giving. Danny explained to us that he struggles with learning differences of his own. My book had a special personal meaning for him. When he read my story, he realized that it wasn't his fault that he wasn't less of a person. That realization changed his perspective on his own life. I spent 5 days at the conference with Danny and his friends, and I was amazed by how quickly I was accepted. This acceptance gave me a sense of validation. People told me that it was okay for me to be me. It reminded me that there was a world beyond myself, beyond college, beyond my academics, in which I could fit and find my place. I was learning disabled. It wasn't going to go away, and I needed to start living my life that way. Now I had a whole group of people who believed in me. For the first time in a long time, I felt strong, clear-headed. I had a new sense of self. I made such a difference to have a total stranger believe in me and value me. What a gift. I returned to college for my sophomore year with an entirely new perspective. The old negative spell had broken. I knew now that Mount Holyoke wasn't going to fix all my problems. Armed with this new sense of self-control and strength, I decided to view the year as a clean slate. I didn't expect to have any friends after my behavior the previous spring, and I didn't expect it to be easy. However, I was surprised at how much more confident and comfortable I felt coming back to campus with a year of experience under my belt. So much was familiar. When we drove up in the family van, I was pleasantly surprised to have my name shouted from across the lawn. Two of my friends from first year, who came running over to give me hugs, excited to see me, and welcome me back. What a difference it made. Returning to familiar campus surroundings and getting right into classes and a well-known routine. Based on my struggles and insight from freshman year, I made changes in the way I approached my academics. I knew my limits now and knew that I needed to do to prevent myself from losing control again. I decided that I couldn't handle more than 3 classes a semester, instead of the full course load of 4. I also knew that I had to take action for myself to get the school to work for me. I needed to have a proofreader specially assigned to me so that I wouldn't have to worry about whether or not I could get an appointment or have my paper completed within the writing center's hours. My LD advocate agreed it was a responsible accommodation and arranged for a personal student proofreader, paid for by the college. I also started using a special daily/weekly planner to help me work on understanding and managing my time so that I could strike a better balance between work and play. This simple tool, a sheet of paper with columns for each day, divided into hours by dotted lines, gave me a freedom I had never felt before. Using markers, I colored in the dots of time when I had classes and meetings. Then I blocked in meals and exercise time. When I looked at my planner, I now could see where I had white spaces. Free time. Those precious white spaces gave me permission to relax and the reassurance that I would have enough time for the important stuff, time to work on homework, and time to spend with friends. I started planning my long-range assignments by working backward from the due date, outlining tasks that I could pace myself and get papers and projects done on time without being overwhelmed. By now, I also had a better sense of how to judge what work wasn't really necessary. Instead of reading everything suggested by the course syllabus, I concentrated on what I knew I would be held accountable for. This saved me a lot of time. Armed with my new attitude and supporters, sophomore year was dramatically different from my first year. Not only was I better able to stay on top of my classes, but I also had some fun, reconnected with old friends, and made new ones. By the end of the year, I came to the realization that even though colleges acknowledge that learning disabilities exist, the very fact that people like my LD advocate does not mean they truly understand the issues and needs of LD students. For me, being learning disabled didn't mean that I expected or needed my work to be made easier. It simply meant that I needed more time to do it. That meant taking a reduced course load, which made it difficult to graduate in 4 years. Since my family couldn't possibly afford a fifth or sixth year of college, I would have to spend my summers taking classes as well as working at a job to make money. When I returned to college junior year, I noticed that some of the familiar patterns and people weren't there. Several of my friends had decided to study abroad for the semester or the year. The rest all seemed to have found significant others or had reconfigured into new groups. Once again, I began to feel lonely and insecure, swamped as usual by the academic demands. I spent most of my nights doing schoolwork, but occasionally watching movies or reading in the library so I could get out of my room. Most of the first semester, I was nagged by the feeling that I wasn't supposed to be at Mount Holyoke. I considered going abroad myself, fantasizing about finding a new opportunity to bond with groups of peers. I knew I had made this mistake before, imagining that by going to a new place, like college, I would finally find my place and fit in. But I'd been sorely disappointed. By this time, the fantasy seemed more realistic, since I would be a part of a group of people who had been thrown into a truly foreign situation together. Through sharing experiences with others in a novel environment, perhaps I would be forced to find common ground and bond. After a lot of debate and doubt, I decided to go abroad for a second semester. Because of my foreign language issues, the key was to find a program in an English-speaking setting that was affordable and had an academic class that Mount Holyoke would count toward my degree. I also needed to find a program that would be sensitive to my learning needs and allow me the accommodations I required to be successful. I chose an environmental studies program in Israel. The Arava Institute for Environmental Studies was based on Kibbutz Kentura in the Negev Desert, 30 minutes north of the Red Sea. The kibbutz was populated largely with English-speaking people, and the program was taught in English. The goal of the institute was to bring people of different cultures and beliefs together, using shared environmental concerns as a way to help foster peace and understanding, not only in the Middle East, but all over the world. The study group I was part of, made up of Palestinian and Israeli students, as well as students from several other countries. Once again, I was different. My habits were different. I wasn't interested in partying at night. I made a few token efforts to participate in the group nightlife, but I always felt like I wasn't cool enough somehow or funny enough. I was usually tired by nightfall and went to bed. Mornings, I was often up long before the rest of the group. As so often before in my life, I found myself bonding most with adults on the kibbutz, including the woman assigned as my mentor and overseer of my independent study project. I spoke with her occasionally about the disappointment I felt not fitting in, of suffering from the same isolation that I had back on campus. I told her that I wished that I could be young and forget the pain I knew and understood already, and maybe fit in and feel connected with the other 20-year-olds of the world. She was sympathetic and encouraged me to truly enjoy whatever people I connected with and the activities and classes I was part of. Eventually, I began to feel at home, even started to feel more comfortable relating to some of the other students. Sarah and I spent a lot of time together, walking around the perimeter fence or wandering through the clusters of houses and gardens that made up the interior of Keturah. On field trips, breaks, and long weekends, the two of us, occasionally joined by one or two others, traveled to different parts of the country. I slowly realized the true value of living in an unfamiliar place versus just visiting it as a tourist. And that's where we'll stop.